chat. The recording would also take the chat. We have 2 or 3 people that are joining us for the first time, and we would want you to introduce yourself. So if this is your time joining the Access to Justice Board, kindly indicate by introducing yourself. Kindly indicate by show of hand, and then you can introduce yourself. In the absence of none, we shall proceed to the next issue on the agenda, adoption of September minutes and the adoption of the corrected August minutes. This has been provided ahead of time. Let's start with the August corrected minutes. We have a motion to approve the corrected minutes as it is.
So moved.
Move, second by
Second.
Michelle. Thank you, SP. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Minutes, August minutes, corrected August minutes adopted unanimously. September minutes. Motion to adopt the September minutes.
So moved.
Or shall move. Michelle ask discussion.
Second.
Well, let's second it first. Shall move to adopt the September minute. Is it seconded? Seconded by Michelle. Okay, discussion. Now, Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, I was just trying to second it earlier. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Okay, any discussion on the September minutes? Any correction? Observation? All right, all in favor of adopting the September minutes? Aye.
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 Thank you. Unanimously adopted September minutes. Now the next issue on the agenda is the Racial Justice Forum planning update. And I would ask SP to lead the conversation and Judge Bradley would follow.
Okay, thank you. So we have put together quite an amazing group of folks who, let's see, we're working with JustLead, and JustLead helped us to do some recruitment and reach out to folks across the state, stakeholders, to create an advisory group that would come together and meet and to discuss and figure out what it is, how we want to respond to this request for addressing the issue of race equity and given that the climate that we're in. And so we did that. It's an amazing group of people from around the state. These are stakeholders that are folks that are the most impacted by our legal system. These are folks that are actually affected in the criminal justice system, and people who work directly with communities that are most harmed. And we have learned quite a bit from this group of folks. And one of the main things that we've learned is that they are not interested in being part of another group where they are being asked to share their experience, where they are being asked to share what is the situation going on with people of color, what is the situation going on with folks in poverty, that they really want to be part of solutions and actions in our justice system to see what we can do to change it. And in an earlier meeting, Francis shared 2 principles that seem to run through these meetings, is that they want to be left out of the criminal justice system, and they want to be included in the civil justice system. So that doesn't mean that the two do not work together. It's just a different reality for folks when it comes to those 2 different systems. There was, I think, a consensus that they want to be in on the ground floor They don't want to be consulted after the fact. These are some of the things that we already know from the community, and that we're learning that the process of working with community and really engaging community is something that is really new for the legal community to do. And that this whole process with an advisory group is a learning opportunity and an opportunity to figure out where we're weak, what is it that we haven't been doing, and to also be held accountable, kind of holding our feet to the fire by the communities who are most harmed. There's a whole lot. Judge Bradley, you want to add to that?
Judge Bradley had to step away to do an airing. She's going to be joining us. Jen, do you want to add to what SP? More is going to be coming. I want everyone to know that more is going to be coming from the board on this Justice Forum. So Jen, do you have anything to add?
I think I would only add that SP sort of alluded to, like, a lot of what we are hearing are things that we already know, but to hear them, we're hearing them in very powerful ways. And one of the takeaways in just even participating, listening in this process is confirm how big the scope is of the work ahead. That, folks are not looking for, like, let's hold an event, let's share our experiences again. That the need is to integrate the work that the ATJ board is already doing, thinking across the civil, criminal, juvenile justice systems. These are systems that, there's different community has different goals in terms of whether they intersect and how they intersect with those systems, but don't enter into them in ways that are as neat and siloed as we might think of them. And also that there's a need to engage and take advantage of the momentum and the power that the momentum that is in the community, as well as the power that the ATJ board has as a convener, as folks with partnerships across the law and justice systems to really leverage that and identify, if there's momentum in other spaces. Within there's the Race and Criminal Justice Task Force happening. The Minority and Justice Commission has been asked by the Board of Judicial Administration to take a role in looking at the same sorts of things that the ATJ board is invested in. So what are the ways that we can kind of leverage this moment, this opportunity, and those relationships to build some real structure and an ongoing space for that collaboration that SB is talking about, rather than finding a sort of one-off opportunity to hear from communities that we need to continue to hear from, but to not leave it at that and not just have it be us taking in more information and not doing anything with it.
Thank you, Jen. I will throw it out to anyone. Do you have any question, clarification? Like we said, community want out of Blacks. Let me be very specific. Blacks and indigenous in our states want out of the criminal justice system. But it's an acknowledgement of the good work that you all do, that they want more from you. They want more civil access to justice. And that is a confirmation of the good work that you all do day and night to keep our people, to give access to justice to all. And that's a very good thing. But as asking for more means that the community see the need and they see where you play a role. Okay? So any other, if there is anyone that have any more to say about this issue, otherwise we would, there is going to be more coming from the board that we will report in months and weeks ahead. Okay, in the absence of none, we move to ATJ conference planning update. Junior, take it away.
Good morning, friends and colleagues. I will say there is a comment that says, did we miss the land acknowledgement when we kicked off the meeting? Should we do that, Francis?
You bet.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm reporting from. I am reporting from the homelands. I am on the Yakama Nation reservation, so I will acknowledge that's where I'm at. A quick report from my end as the co-chair of the Access to Justice Conference Planning Committee, and I know many of you are on it with me, so please fill in the blanks wherever if I miss anything. But first and foremost, I do want to thank the board for the clarity on being able to go completely virtual. I think that was one of the biggest questions for us, is whether or not just the approach to take. What type of conference are we going to plan? Our first meeting was October 15th. We have put together a robust planning committee from across the state. As may have been reported to you at a prior meeting, what the planning committee has decided to do is to break up the state into 5 or 10 different geographical regions. And we wanted to ensure that we had representation on the planning committee from across the state. With us going to a virtual conference for the first time ever, we obviously are going to have to deal with the accessibility issues related to technology. And we wanted to have people proximate across the state that could respond to any accessibility needs across the state. So I will report that across the state, so far we have about 30 planning committee members from all across the state. The 10 regions from across the state are King County, Tacoma, Bellingham, Olympia, Vancouver, the Colville area, Wenatchee, Yakima, Spokane, and the Tri-Cities. We are flexible with these regions, so as we see needs arise, we will be flexible and ensure that we meet those needs. So what came from the first meeting is that now we are working on setting our reoccurring monthly meeting, working on our subcommittee signups. Our subcommittees consist of a technology committee, an outreach and accessibility committee, a theme and content committee, and a fundraising committee. Some of you are on those committees, and if you're not, sign up. The other update is that we are now pivoting to work on our theme. As many of you who have participated on these planning committees know, that is a big momentous project. Once we have our theme down, that kind of informs a lot of what we do. So will be our next steps. Finally, we have 2 areas where we're trying to still encourage participation from the law schools across the state. I'm working, obviously, I see Terry online to see if we can get a student from UW. Seattle U, we're hoping to get somebody, and we have someone from Gonzaga. But most importantly, and just to piggyback on some of the comments made just recently or just before me, there was a comment made, and I agree, that we need to have more individuals on the planning committee whom have been impacted and now would like to be a part of the effort on the civil access to civil justice side. That is a comment that I just heard from SB and from Jen that we are going to take action on and try to fill that within our planning committee team. So that is the high level update, and I'll turn it over to the board for any questions.
Any question for Junior? And I apologize to everyone. I got carried away with getting the information out about the fact that civil access to justice is a fundamental right, that I forgot to do the land acknowledgement. I apologize to everyone. Thank you, Junior, for doing that for me. I appreciate that. Any question for Junior? All right, we move on to eviction prevention.
I have a question.
Yes, SP, go ahead.
Junior, what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing so far in this process, and what do you have you all been talking about what you perceive might be the challenges coming up? We know the pandemic is definitely one of them, but has there been discussion about that?
Well, SB, yes, great question. Yes, we are definitely discussing trying to forecast what our primary challenges will be. I foresee that our primary challenge is going to be technology. This is a virtual conference. The only way to access it will be through digital means at this time. We have created a little bit of flexibility built into this planning with the geographic regions. Our hope is to have hubs all across the state that if someone does not have the access to technology, that we can meet that need through these hubs across the state and either provide the technology or provide a safe space based on the current dynamics within our health system that we have going on. So definitely SB technology will be one of the biggest challenges. And then secondly, I think we will have to be creative as to how we allocate the funds that we raise from fundraising. Historically, the funds have primarily gone to accommodating travel and lodging. With the conference going virtual, I foresee that we will have to rethink the way that we allocate funds, and possibly for the first time ever, depending on if it's possible. I know historically we have been limited to being able to provide cash scholarships. For example, it always had to be tied to an expense of some sort related to travel, related to. So I do wonder if we will be able to use some of those funds for more practical purposes related to maybe buying a laptop or something of that nature. I see those two as the biggest challenges at SB.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Junior. Just to add to what Junior said, the director of the second largest library in our state is part of the planning committee for this conference, precisely because of that. So we are really looking at access in terms of technological access for the conference as an important issue. Thank you. So we would need, we will move on to the next.
Terry
Yes,
had a
go
question.
ahead.
He had his hand up.
Thank you. I'm just really curious, maybe this is just too much in the weeds, Junior, but are you looking for both like hotspots for bandwidth and you're looking for computers? Is that what I'm hearing?
Both.
That is accurate. And, you know, just even sharing that a lot of the communities that have the most need also we will need to address the hotspot situation, right? Because some of these areas don't even have internet access. So definitely that is absolutely a big part of that tech hurdle.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Terry. That's a very important question. All right. We're going to go to the eviction prevention services. Jim? You're on mute.
No, I'm not. Good morning, all. So I've been asked to provide an update on the Superior Court Judges Association's eviction resolution program. It's a program that we hoped would involve 7 pilot counties. We do have 6 signed up. Apparently, we have some more work to do in Yakima County, but the 6 counties represent 79% of all the eviction filings in the first part of 2020. They include Snohomish, King, Pierce, Thurston, Clark, and Spokane counties. The program will involve on-the-ground connections between housing justice projects, between dispute resolution centers, between the courts, which will each issue a standing order requiring participation in the eviction resolution process once the moratorium is lifted, and encouraging participation while the moratorium is in place. And they will be working directly with what we call ERAP, Emergency Rent Assistance Program, funding administrators in each of the counties. The goal is to divert cases away from the courts and find resolutions in the short term and position the parties to continue those resolutions should additional funding be made available by the Congress or the state legislature, and should we be able to find ways to reduce the deluge of cases that are going to come to the courts once the moratorium is lifted. I served on the governor's eviction moratorium work group. I guess I still do, which led to the extension of the moratorium through the end of this year. We will continue to meet and monitor the situation to determine whether the moratorium requires further extension. It seems likely that something will happen there, given that nobody wants people pushed out onto the street in the middle of the winter. In the meantime, each of the pilot counties will issue a standing order. There's a lot of information in the Q&A that I just circulated, or Diana and Bonnie just circulated, that we sent out. We have received approval of funding for the program, most of which will be used to stand up capacity at the DRCs. OCLA has funded the HJPs, so those two pieces are in place. And we will begin a rollout of this with an intentional media strategy run through the Administrative Office of the Courts, and Wendy Farrell, who's the Chief Communications Officer there. There will be a dedicated web page, both at AOC on the courts.wa.gov website, as well as on each of the websites of the pilot counties. It's a very exciting opportunity. We are aware of only 2 other diversion programs in the nation, and we think that standing this up between now and the 31st of December will position us well to continue the operations at a time when they're going to be most urgently needed when the moratorium is lifted. Happy to answer any questions.
We've actually increased time for this topic because of its importance. So we would appreciate if people have questions for Jim. So it's more than 5 minutes that we have on this topic.
It's okay. I thought I could do it within 5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Lucas. I am an Access to Justice Board member. I'm also the directing attorney of the Tenant Law Center. So I was asked to provide a little bit of information of kind of what's going on with the Tenant Law Center and some on the ground info. One thing I wanted to ask Jim is, I know that is the eviction resolution program, how successful is it going setting that up directly with the rental assistance payments? Do we know how that process is moving along?
Well, every place is going to be different. We have great relationships already in place in Pierce County and in Snohomish County, and I presume between the HJP and King County and the rent assistance providers there, which includes the HJP. I think it's going to be a little different in some of the other counties, but the DRCs are community-based, and in many locations, the rent assistance programs are being run through community action agencies. So we think it's going to work quite well.
Excellent. Yeah, if folks have questions, please feel free to pipe up. I just also can take a few minutes to offer some perspective of what's going on from the legal assistance side of the eviction moratorium. So Tenant Law Center focuses mostly on the ongoing representation in complex eviction matters and housing subsidy terminations. We are staying quite busy. There are a few exceptions to the moratorium, and so evictions are still moving forward in those areas. And those are kind of intensive cases to work on. So we still have plenty to do. One thing that we are seeing we're getting a lot of calls. There's still so much uncertainty around the pandemic that folks are really concerned about what's going on, what their rights are. So we do field a lot of calls just answering questions about the moratorium, as well as we practice in King County, and my understanding is that this problem is statewide, which is a lot of kind of bad actions from landlords, kind of pretextual ways to to make tenants not want to live there when they can't pay their rent. So there's a lot of things going on. A lot of those calls are getting referred to the Attorney General's office as they're enforcing the moratorium, but there's still a lot to do in the landlord tenant realm, even though there's a general prohibition on evictions.
If I might, Michelle, just follow up, the work group and the participants on the work group all have reported, and the data from AOC confirms that there is an increase in unlawful detainer filing activity across the state. It went immediately down to almost zero right after the moratorium was imposed in April. It has crawled back slowly as landlords realize that they have cash flow needs that are not being met, and their lawyers are finding very creative ways to try and pigeonhole their circumstances into one of the two exceptions to the moratorium. The revised moratorium provides, I think, some greater guidance and boundaries around those two areas of exception. But I think your term, Michelle, is correct. We do see a number of pretextual filings. The housing justice projects are reporting that to us. And we are therefore directing in the pilot counties, in the standing order, that any landlord wishing to file an eviction proceeding, an unlawful detainer proceeding, even during the moratorium, must notify the DRC and the Housing Justice Project in that community of the tenant's last known contact information so that they can contact the tenant and make their services available.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
This is Claudia. I have a question. If we want to keep an eye on what's evolving with the project, the mediation project, where do we go? Where is that going to be updated, or will just the updates come here? I'm really interested in like what's being found and how things are moving, like if changes are being made, or, you know, just from a learning perspective.
Well, there will be the main website at AOC. Part of the funding that we've secured will go to a research component that will be handled by the Washington State Center for Court Research. I don't think you're going to see a lot of real-time monitoring and reporting. I think people are just really going to be trying to stand up operations and, you know, get through the period between now and December 31st and figure out what happens after that, as the principal funding source is from the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and current expenditure authority ends on December 30th. I think over time, you know, in the likely event that there will be an additional COVID-19 package passed by the Congress, whichever Congress emerges, it will definitely make funding available both for increased rent assistance and landlord assistance payments, as well as for increased operations and possibly expanded operations of this program. One of the things that's very interesting is, while not a pilot county and while not a county that has a whole lot of historical filings, unlawful detainer filings, we've been contacted by Cowlitz County and the team at NJP in particular, who advised that the court there wants to develop some sort of a program along the lines of the ERP, but you know, substantially slimmed down version of the same. And we're going to be meeting with the judges there the first week of November to explore that possibility. So the goal is to try and, you know, test the, you know, prove the concept, put the infrastructure in place in the biggest counties, and then create opportunities for others to emulate the, you know, the diversion component of this thing in a manner that works best for their counties and the resources available in their counties.
Thank you, Jim. That's great to hear other counties are already inquiring about expansion or adoption. That's great. I'll keep an eye on that. I'll keep an eye on the ASC page and then see what this research group puts out maybe in 9 months or so.
All right, any more discussion on this topic? Thank you, Jim. We appreciate your presentation. And now we move on to Michelle's presentation on the Tenant Law Center.
Sorry, I thought that those were
That's
together on the agenda. The copy of the agenda that I have has those, doesn't have me on there. So I thought I was kind of going at the same time as Jim, but I can say more if there's time.
Yeah, there's time. There's time for you to say more because one of the things that the executive committee decided to do is to give small civil legal aid opportunity to be able to provide information about their program, especially during this twin pandemic. So please go ahead, Michelle.
Of course. How much time is on the agenda, Francis?
We have till about 10:45.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'll need that much time because I didn't see it on here, but that's totally fine. So like I mentioned, I am the directing attorney of the Tenant Law Center. We are working steadily on these eviction cases. A lot of the cases that we see are not just evictions. We also work a lot with folks who are in subsidized housing. So we are working on subsidy termination cases as well. Most of the cases involve some sort of disability, reasonable accommodation, criminal justice system involvement. There are these larger issues that we're trying to address with a main goal of preventing homelessness and trying to get people and trying to maintain housing stability. And our general practice is to be is early intervention. So, we want to get there. We try to get involved in cases before there's a termination notice, and we have good working relationships with the housing authorities and some of the bigger housing agencies to get the best outcomes for some of the most vulnerable people in the community. Another one of the projects that we have worked on in the past and we're still able to do to in a limited way is working with unhoused folks who are enrolled in rapid rehousing programs in King County. So the rapid rehousing programs basically work with folks who are experiencing homelessness and helps them address some of the issues that they're keeping them from being rehoused. Something that came up a few years ago in the program was a realization that a lot of those issues are legal barriers, such as a past eviction that is on their rental record, or a debt to a former landlord. The rapid rehousing programs are able to help pay off those debts. And about a few years ago, the Tenant Law Center was funded for a pilot project where we worked collaboratively with all of the rapid rehousing programs in King County. And we were able to work with those clients who had debts to previous landlords. We negotiated those debts down. We verified the debts, and overall, I think the reduction was tens of thousands of dollars, about 53% from the original amount owed on average. So, and then we also were able to help folks get the necessary court orders, like the satisfaction of judgment and the orders of limited dissemination, so that those evictions couldn't keep following them around and preventing them from moving out of homelessness. And the rapid rehousing program did the case management end, we did the legal end, and it was a really good and successful collaboration. So that's a program that we are still able to do a little bit with programs within Catholic Community Services, which is the organization that we're a part of. But we are working on trying to get funding to re-up those partnerships throughout King County. because it was great for the program, it was great for the participants, and it just really increased the success of folks who are going through rapid rehousing. Again, and that's also related to, you know, we feel like it's very related to the moratorium or the pandemic, I guess, in the fact that the moratorium's purpose is to prevent homelessness. And we want to do the work that we can to help move people into permanent housing, because it's just, I mean, especially during the winter and during a pandemic, it's a time that we want to avoid. We always want to avoid people being unhoused, but we don't have the shelter space to accommodate people right now. So the most that we can do is get people off the streets. And there's a question about what the eligibility requirements for our program is. Thanks, Chach. Is that specifically for the Tenant Law Center, for the eviction prevention services, or for the rapid rehousing?
Sorry, I was thinking for the Tenant Law Center.
Oh, no, that's okay. Tenant Law Center, we generally work with folks who are under 50% of the area median income for their household. We also, and that is the biggest eligibility requirement. We do focus our ongoing representation on eviction prevention and subsidy termination. And so that is where we specialize. We do have some ability to work on general housing stability programs, but we aren't able to provide representation when it comes to deposits or repairs. Although during the pandemic, we have kind of shifted because of the, because like Jim was mentioning, there was a huge decrease in the number of filed evictions for a while. We did shift to providing more advice over the phone for folks because so many people have questions. So anyone can call us. And I can put our intake line in the chat box for people, but anyone is welcome to call us, and we reach back out to everyone that calls. But our representation services are limited to eviction prevention, subsidy termination, and we can also assist on lease breaks when domestic violence is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Excellent. We will. In the absence of any more discussion on the Tenant Law Center, we'll move on to JustLead Equity Toolkit 2.0 update. Jen and Omid. Oh, you are on mute, Omid.
Oh man, that hasn't happened in a while, but it was bound to happen today. Hello all, yeah, I'll provide the update today on the Reggie Toolkit 2.0. Giving you this update from occupied Coast Salish land, specifically the Duwamish people, Chief Seattle City. And I share that as well because, you know, the Reggie Toolkit update has a lot of what you know. The structure is very similar, but the second edition, as we've dubbed it, and I'll pop the link in the chat in case folks haven't seen it or just have it handy, it's on the JustLead and Reggie websites. It has a refresh, but it has more explicit framing and discussion around anti-ingenuity and in terms of disproportionate harm on indigenous communities and settler colonialism, anti-Black racism, and overall, along with this refresh and some explicit framing on those pieces, you know, we were ready to refresh the toolkit because we believe it's a living document. We want to make sure it's responsive and helpful for the community, the Alliance community, and folks who are doing this work, Reggie community, and so forth. And we were nearing this past summer, and COVID came, racial uprisings began. So we took some extra time as well to make sure that this new second edition was inclusive of what we are seeing, what we have been dealing with these last couple months / decades, it seems. So that's new to the toolkit as well as you know, additional tools, frameworks. There are, and just to highlight a few of these, and then I'll just open it up if folks have any questions or feedback if you've seen it already. There is a new section on what are the more explicit phases of organizational equity work? What does that typically look like? We had some portions on this already, but we kind of built that out to hopefully create more of a potential path map for organizations who are beginning this work, in the middle of this work, to practice race equity in all aspects of their organizations and institutions. We have new sections that speak to more of the personal work we have to do around things like the Leticia Nieto target agent framework that many of you have seen, or in some shape or form, and that being a key piece to advancing the work on an individual interpersonal level. And lastly, some updates to the Reggie Toolkit assessment itself based on work JustLead in the last couple of years, working with organizations conducting assessments, and again, just a refresh and update, more of what worked in terms of the feedback we got, and then made updates and added additional tools throughout that we wanted to really bring to the community, Legal Community Alliance. So shout out to the Office of Legal Aid, Jim, for again funding this work and ensuring this resource is, this written resource is it's ultimately a tool, and we hope it can continue to be a useful tool for folks who are diving into any part of their race equity work. And we will continue to update it in the years ahead, and include additional resources as supplements to the toolkit. So the last thing I'll share is, along with second edition toolkit that is released, you'll also notice a new resource that is cited in the toolkit, but also included on the JustLead website as well, Reggie website. It's called Building Legal and Community Partnerships. This was an area that, of course, is an ongoing focus for all of us, and something we wanted to devote some more particular attention to. So created this guide that really focuses on one key aspect of building legal community partnerships, which is relationship building, and doing so from the legal advocate, attorney hats, and so forth that we all wear as representatives of the law and justice system. So definitely want to highlight that resource as well, and all of the resources we have, part of the toolkit and supplements to it, are all living documents that we hope to keep updating, keep refreshed, and keep building on. That would be the overview of the toolkit. Jen, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add, or other questions, comments from folks, or feedback if you've seen it. Always open to hearing how folks are using it, what was useful, and additional changes we can make in the future.
Thanks, Amit. If we have one additional minute, do you mind, since there's so many Reggie partners on the meeting today, do you mind sharing briefly what the working group for Reggie will be working on, and the acknowledgements and commitments refresh?
Oh, sure. One thing that emerged in the review and update process of the Reggie Toolkit, one aspect of which was folks within the Reggie community, Reggie partners, offering their time to review the toolkit and provide their direct feedback as we were identifying things to change. One thing that emerged was a request, a question to explore what would updating the Reggie acknowledgements and commitments look like. These were developed but the request idea came from particular time we're in, and making sure that those acknowledged commitments are also relevant and responsive to the moment we're in, but also since it's been several. People hear me? Can people hear me? Wave your hand if you can hear me. Oh, okay. Sorry. My internet connection went unstable. Wasn't sure. Okay, cool. Updating the Reggie acknowledgement commitments, because it's been a few years since they've been updated, but to make it responsive. So one effort we're going to move forward on, which several folks have already signed up for, and we'll be convening as a Reggie work group, exploring what changes to the Reggie acknowledgements commitments might look like, and proposing that to Reggie partners as a way to recommit to the work. And that's going to be in parallel to conversations, this Reggie work group that is being convened, or in terms of the accountability structure of Reggie. Very much early in ideas of, again, what is
You're breaking up, Omid.
my apologies. What was the last thing you heard, SB?
The Reggie acknowledgements. I mean, you were right in the middle of
All
that.
right. Yeah. So the work group that's being formed, and folks can reach out to me if they're interested in learning more about it, being a part of it, is to update the Reggie acknowledgements and commitments, or explore what that would look like, and explore what a process would be to then propose those changes to Reggie partners to recommit to Reggie in the work, in the sphere of exploring what Reggie's accountability structure is. What does it mean to be a Reggie partner? Which for me is an ongoing question that never ends, in terms of always exploring how we can invite ourselves to be accountable to this work, and estate plan and so forth.
Thank you, Omid.
So a little bit about that, and happy to.
All right, thank you. When is the next Reggie meeting, Reggie Partners meeting? Do you have it? Can you put it in the chat for everyone?
I will. I'll pop that in.
All right, thank you. Now we go to liaison reports. I'll start with SAL, Gender and Justice Commission. Any reports?
No, their last meeting conflicted with our meeting, so I was not able to attend last month's meeting.
Terry? I know Terry has a lot of meetings this month.
Thank you, Francis. The JISC, the Judicial Information Systems, is going on right now. So I can't be there. I looked at the agenda. There were a lot in the JISC and the CUG, the Superior Court User Work Group, a lot of discussion about planned updates to these systems that some are still going forward, some are still being negotiated. But the overwhelming message that comes out all the time is not having a unified court system. The courts have kind of dual jurisdictions, right? The AOC plus their individual counties. And this goes to what Junior was talking about for the ATJ and the hotspots. Some courthouses don't even have Wi-Fi in the courthouse for the litigants, right? And the JIC is talking about their governance process today, and I noticed on their list of approved programs or projects are e-filing for counties, e-filing for this county, for Yakima, for Snohomish, for all of these counties, and I bring up there, and also as part of the Court Recovery Task Force, about customer service. What are we doing for self-represented litigants? They can't take advantage of e-filing. They need they may not even have stable Wi-Fi at home. So or access to computers at home, and libraries are shut down. So I continue to be a thorn in the side of the AOC to push for more technological understanding for self-represented litigants.
Thank you, Terry. SP, MJC.
Okay, I was not able to attend that well enough because the BGA met at the same time. So I attended the BGA meeting, and there's a lot going on. One of the key things is that the MJC and BGA will be working together around the whole issue of race equity. And I know that JustLead is in there somewhere, or going to be. And so there's, what's really exciting is how the issue of race equity is becoming, or has become, a key agenda item and a key action item for the different structures within the legal community. Another thing is that some of you may have seen an email that went out from, regarding an award, the Innovative Justice Award, and that was something that Chief Justice Stevens and others wanted to bring up. And so it has been created, and I'm gonna stick a link to it in the chat so that people can take a look at it. And one thing about the award is that is it gonna be, the criteria by which folks will be selected, individuals or organizations will be selected, will be done through a race equity lens. So the language is becoming the norm, which is exciting. Let's see. There was a very good report that was given by by Justice Yu regarding the work of the MJC. So it was, it actually was very helpful in regards to the work that they continue to do with the LFOs issue, the mass incarceration of women and girls of color, and systemic racism education, that focus, working on diversifying the legal workplace, addressing that issue, addressing the issue of legislation in the Rules Committee. They established a new subcommittee to create an institutional resource for the BGA lawmakers and other interested parties to evaluate race equity implications around proposed legislation. And also talked about court equity in regards to reopening. Obviously, you know, there's a little bit of that going on in the courts, and we're not going to see the courts opening fully for a while. And while that process is going on, the issue of race equity is very important. As we heard about, the technology is definitely one of the issues that impacts poor and community of color. So that's at the top of the list for the MJC. So in a way, although I didn't get to be in the meeting, it was great that Justice Yu was at the BGA, because then she was able to give a report. And that's all I have to report right now.
Thank you. Any other reports? Judge Corbett, any reports?
Sorry about taking time to unmute there. I did. September 25th was our ATJ meeting, but it also corresponded with Oakland meeting. So I left this meeting earlier. It was a well-run meeting, a lot of discussion dealing with the further discussion of the race equity discussions, and a couple different matters on the agenda, as we're familiar with, is the the COVID-19 emergency legal aid programs and discussions. And I did comment that it was a very well-run and efficient meeting.
Thank you. Jim? Jim?
Yes, I just actually wanted to go back to Terry's presentation, particularly as it relates to e-filing. I know that the Court Recovery Task Force has a technology working group, and I think, Terry, you're on that working group?
We had a joint meeting, but no, that's Judge Estudillo and Dawn Marie Rubio. I'm not on there.
Oh, well, I think that that's a place where we need to be, because they're going to move forward. And, you know, if my 15 years plus of experience with AOC is any indication, they will find, and the clerks, they will find hundreds of reasons why they cannot make universal e-filing available particularly to unrepresented litigants and to legal aid and indigent defender programs.
I agree. And Jim, as you well know, I brought up at the Court Recovery Task Force the powerful force known as resistance. I do see Jennifer Ortega is one of the tiles here, and she is both on the Family Law Subcommittee and she is also on the Technology Subcommittee. But yes, I absolutely agree with you, Jim.
Thank you. Interpreters Commission and the liaison, we work on GR9 cover as well as amendment to 11.3 and remote interpreting. One of the most important things that we did is the requirement for a good faith finding. Whenever an interpreter is appointed in the legal proceedings, the interpreter shall appear in person unless the court makes a good cause finding that an in-person interpreter is not practicable. That was a very important and essential amendment to the 11.3 that we were seeking, and the court shall then make a preliminary determination because we didn't want the general rule to go away. We don't want the current new normal to be the normal forever. Remote interpreting is very, very difficult. It took the commission a lot of effort and a lot of energy to get the right language together. And so we've made the presentation on that rule, GR9 cover, as well as the rule 11.3 amendment. That's on the Interpreters Commission. Any other liaison report from the board members? All right, we go on to Equal Justice Coalition updates. Will?
Everybody, they'll all be quick. The King County Council is engaged in its biennial budget process right now. So the EJC is pretty focused on protecting and maintaining the services that are funded through the county's general fund. I don't want to spend this statewide group's time on that necessarily, but we have a great group of people, including Michelle, helping us with our advocacy there. And if you have any questions about the King County side, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, you may have seen the invite I sent out to the ATJ listserv earlier this week. We are going to have monthly stakeholder check-in calls from now through the end of the legislative session. The first one is going to be on Tuesday at 1. We're hoping to have those on every Tuesday at the end of every month through the legislative session to continue our discussion about the biennial budget request, about updates to our messaging and outreach, and to plan our lobbying and work during the legislative session, or what is very, very likely to be virtual lobbying, and our starting outreach to legislators after the election and the session. So just invite anybody who's interested to join on Tuesday, or for future meetings if you want. I'll put my email in the chat. And then I just wanted to flag that we are hoping to have, rather than a lobby day in Olympia like we would usually have, a virtual lobby week, likely in the second week of February after the Gold Mark. So save the dates both for the Gold Mark luncheon on Friday, February 5th, and then virtual lobby week the week after that. And I will have more details about that soon as we go through our stakeholder process to prepare. I think that's it.
Thank you, Will. Any suggestions, questions, and concerns for Will? In the absence of none of any, we go to funding report. Cesar? Is Cesar on the, I saw him. Okay, we'll come back to Cesar. Jim, we'll go to Jim and then come back to Cesar when you get back.
So my report will be short, but I did omit acknowledging that I am working from home, which is on the traditional lands of the Nisqually and the Squaxin Island Coast Salish tribes here in Olympia. We have submitted our budget request for a total of $11 million for the next biennium, exclusively focused on carrying forward COVID-19 related civil legal aid activities. Some of which will, well, the majority of which in the short term will continue investments that we have already made in unemployment, insurance representation, eviction and foreclosure defense, looking to the waves of need that continue to mount up in light of backlogs at both the Employment Security Department and the Office of Administrative Hearings as it relates to unemployment insurance, and the continuing forbearance requirements on foreclosures and the moratorium, the eviction moratorium. But we are also committed to maintaining contact with the community and having an ongoing dialogue to ensure that the investments that we continue to make moving forward through the biennium are informed by the community of people who are closest to the ground, closest to understanding where, what, and how the COVID-19 legal problems manifest, and that we will tweak as appropriate, recognizing the need for agility and flexibility over time. There's a couple of other small things that don't relate to our COVID-19 effort, but the vast majority of, well, the principal focus of our effort in the biennium will be this $11 million ask.
All right, any questions, concerns, and clarification needed for Jim? Anyone? Let me check this second. Bonnie, did you have a question for Jim? Okay. In the absence of that, we move to Legal Foundation of Washington. I believe Melinda is going to be doing some presentation, but Caitlin, you want to go first? All right, sure. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I wish I could be with you all in person, but here we are. Our most exciting news this week is that the COVID-19 Washington Immigrant Relief Fund launched. It launched on Wednesday. We're so excited at the Legal Foundation to be in partnership with an amazing community of immigrant-led organizations to make these funds available. In the first 36 hours of the website being launched, we got 40,000 hits. So there's a tremendous amount of interest and need in the community for these funds. And again, if you didn't see my notice to the listserv earlier this week, for more information, you can go to immigrant-relief-wa.org for more information. Iota Revenue, which is our traditional bread and butter, continues to be low. We predict this will continue at least through mid-2023. However, we continue to see additional resources with our methods that are scrappy, novel, traditional, depending on how you look at it. We'll mention the $1 million in King County funding that through the CARES Act that LFW will administer. We have a couple of technical rule changes that we're putting forth to the Supreme Court that we think will add to our revenue enhancement efforts. And our plan for 2021, as I've told you before, is steady goes the course for legal aid.
Thank you. Caitlin, I have a lot of family members that bombarded me with emails when the website went up. And their question is, their concerns, and I think they need a little bit more education. I don't know if there is anything we can do. They're concerned about the fact, are you sure that they're not going to give my information to the federal government? Are you sure that participating in this will not expose my family to deportation. Those are very valid concerns. I got a lot of emails from family members all over the state about this concern. So maybe a little education will help.
Absolutely. And I think one way that we're protecting the identities of potential applicants and applicants for this fund is rather than the legal foundation or the Department of Social and Health Services managing the individual applications, we have subcontracted with some promotores or community partners to protect the confidentiality. There are many safeguards in place to protect the identity of applicants. That was the whole design of the project to begin with. It's paramount. We had a great interview on Univision on Wednesday, in which some of our community partners explained in Spanish the protections that are in place and the safeguards. And we're hoping that with our community partners, we're going to get out the word in its, I believe, 11 languages. That this is we believe this is a safe process, and that's the plan. But thank you. We're rolling out a lot of this very quickly. But the number one concern has been, protecting people's privacy as they try to apply for funds.
Thank you, Chach.
Hi, Caitlin, thanks so much for doing that. I do have I guess some feedback. I went through it yesterday with the client on the phone in Spanish, and the process of getting a link is it's confusing, and I don't think it was in Spanish. When it comes to you, the instructions are in English, and then there are times where I feel like we were entering in things, and like if it wasn't entered in correctly or it needed some updating, the response was in English. So it says like this field needs to be filled out, whatever, like if it's a phone number with dashes, but the information is in English. So if you might just want someone to go through and do it as if they were, or with the monolingual Spanish speaker.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback. We're working with WISN, the Washington Immigration Solidarity Network. They're the ones who are responsible for certain elements of this, and I will absolutely share that with them. Again, there's we're working under a very tight timeline. The amount, and we're building out a lot of the communications, the websites, and the translations, quickly. And I expect there to be some glitches. Again, one of our first and primary considerations was security. So we'll iron out the technical details. A lot of them are being fixed over this weekend. But for us, the first thing was security, to make sure that we have the capacity to protect information. But I will totally share your feedback with Watson and their partners. And again, some of the challenge has been we're doing it in 11 languages. And so, and also at the same time, the city of Seattle has also released some funding for a very similar project, and trying to keep them separate and getting people lined up for the right source of funding. But I will share your feedback, and a lot of the issues that we're encountering will be ironed out very soon. The first grants will go out, I believe, next Wednesday.
That's great. Thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? I hope I didn't miss anyone. Yes, SP, go ahead.
Caitlin, hi. Thank you for all that. It's just amazing. It was very exciting when I got the email. Just a question, given that you had such an incredible response, and I think we knew that was going to happen, and that there are organizations that are helping people with forms like Chach, was working with a client. And I'm sure that there's, and looking at the email, there's a lot of organizations that are tapped in that are helping to provide that support. Have you discussed what to do? Because that's a lot of people for it's really a small group of organizations when you think about it, when you think how many people are needing the service, and oftentimes need somebody to kind of help them walk through. And then if you're talking about also that issue that keeps coming up, access to technology, right? Does the person actually have access to a computer, and what things are being put in place, or what kind of conversations are happening to address those issues?
Sure. So the way the program is designed is there's 3 ways to access the application, right? There's a website, the one I gave you that is being managed through an organization called Scholarship Junkies. And so for people who have, just can go on the website, they can fill out an application directly. You can call the Washington Immigration Solidarity Network hotline, and they can either walk you through the application process themselves or refer an individual to one of our promotores who can actually, we have many partners, Asian Counseling and Referral Service, the Washington Census. There's a lot of organizations that we're subcontracting with to work with folks in various languages. And they're being supported through the hotline, the translation hotline that LFW provides to the rest of our grantees, known as Voyants. So you can do it by phone, and you can also apply by mail. You can print out an application and submit it, and it will be processed, just by regular snail mail. So those are really the 3 primary intake opportunities for people. We're aware that there's other community organizations that haven't been part of this sort of grassroots network that submitted the RFP, who will be helping, like ELAP, like Chacha's organization. But those are the 3 main intake points: the website, the Wisen hotline, and then printing out an application by mail in one of the 11 languages.
Okay. Thank
Is
you.
that cool?
Yeah, very. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question for Caitlin? All right, Belinda?
Yes. Hi. Good morning, and thank you, Francis. The fall continues to be our busiest season over at the Foundation for Fundraising. We've launched the Gold Mark. I hope most of you saw that. We put it in our brief newsletter. We'll be honoring Lem Howell with the Gold Mark Award this year. And Doug Baldwin from the Seahawks is going to be speaking. And we are building out that 60-minute Zoom program now, and we're actually really excited about that. And we hope to see 1,000 people at that at least this year again, if our platform can handle that. The law firm campaigns are well underway in King County and Pierce County. We've raised $400,000 of our $650,000 goal so far in King County, and thrilled with that. We have the Rainier Cup competition going on, which is in each county. We've got attorneys working hard in order to win that. It's the largest percentage of attorneys who donate to the campaign win that cup every year. In addition to those regular efforts, we have a new associates campaign, which is already 50% of its way, has already raised 50% of its goal. We're thrilled with that. We have 11 firms participating in that. And that's just been a great way to grow awareness about the need and the impact of legal aid. We also have a corporate counsel campaign going on. We have so many large corporations here, and the legal shops in there are basically like small law firms. So we are really trying to, again, raise awareness there about the impact for legal aid. In total, we're about $1.4 million on the way to our $1.8 million goal. The endowment is very close to wrapping up its $5 million campaign. We have about 8% to go. Of course, I think that's the hardest money to raise too. But we are hoping to be able to wrap that up by the end of the year, on our way to contributing $1 million a year to the Foundation's grant-making pool. I want to thank Murph, and shout out to Murph for joining the Associates Campaign Happy Hour next week. We are so grateful for all the support that we get from the legal Legal Aid Network and everybody in this room. And thank you. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Natalia Fior is also here at the meeting, and she can answer any questions you might have about the specific fundraising campaigns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question or comment for Melinda and Natalia? Okay. I believe Cesar left. Jim, could you help? Is Jim still there? Jim, could you help us provide some federal funding report, or Caitlin, anyone that can help us? Any updates from the federal funding?
I think Will's probably better positioned than I am.
Yes, Will.
Will, are you still here?
I am.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any necessarily federal funding updates. I don't know what the last time we updated folks was. The House subcommittee that is responsible for the Legal Services Corporation budget had approved a $25 million increase, which would benefit NJP obviously, and the national folks, LS Legal Services Corporation, the American Bar Association, and others are asking for another $50 million. They got $50 million for LSC grantees in the CARES Act. They're asking for another $50 million in, or I should say, if there is a second CARES Act, which obviously is still possibly forthcoming from the Congress. That's, I think, all I have, though.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate that.
All I would have had.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Any update, announcement from Alliance members? This is the time. Cindy provides this information in the chat because she has to leave. She said the pro bono week starts next week. She wants everyone to know that pro bono week starts next week. ATJ Seattle U Law is partnering with KCBA to host an all-day Housing Justice Project clinic to see as many clients as they can. Let's support that effort. Thank you. Any other announcements or update? All right. Nobody ever gets disappointed that we ended a meeting on time. Sal is very proud of me for saying that. Thank you. So, in the absence of any other updates, Jen, did you have any updates? I'm sorry. Okay. In the absence of any other updates, I want you to pay attention to the agenda. We are putting ATJ Board committee schedules on the agenda now so that you could feel if you need to attend any of these subcommittee meetings because you have some information that will be relevant to them. You'll be able to at least know when they are meeting and when to provide an update and input to the process. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Francis. Great job.
Thank you, SP.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.